Minecraft is a 15-year-old game, and while some people still love that classic look, there are some simple ways to make the world look a lot better without using expensive shaders. So today I'm going to show you a few easy effects that can seriously improve the base game and make your world feel way more immersive. Now in today's episode, we're going to be using a lot of Axiom, but all of these little tips and tricks can be done in vanilla Minecraft without the use of mods. I just find that Axiom speeds up the process. So let's get into our first topic, water depth. Now, when you hang around water in Minecraft long enough, these weird patches of different blocks can start to look weird and uneven. Personally, I prefer a more solid block palette. So for my underwater palettes, here are a few options you can try out. First up is just a solid block. You just choose one that fits in the area. For a sandy area, just use sand. But for most places, I tend to use just mud. It's a solid, easy choice that just makes the water look a bit darker, and it's something that shaders just naturally do. Alright, next up is a noise pattern. It's a great way to build on that solid block you just chose. So for something like mud, you have to choose similar blocks. So for color, you could choose something like gray concrete, and maybe cyan terracotta for a bit of brightness. And then you could use a bit of muddy mangrove roots for that texture where all that brown kind of looks like twigs that have settled to the bottom of your lake bed. And finally, you could use something that I like to call a depth gradient. This one's a little bit more advanced, and you have to choose a gradient of blocks that you place the lighter blocks closer to the surface. This can enhance the darkness that Minecraft already adds the deeper the water goes. Here are a few fun gradients you can choose from. These kinds can work good for ponds, lakes, or even oceans, and instantly makes them feel way more realistic and a lot cooler. The next technique I'm going to show you is called staining and damage. It adds a little bit of wear and tear to your world. Now, Minecraft worlds generate completely fresh, no aging, no damage, nothing, so the world can feel a little bit lifeless. But you can fix that by adding small imperfections to your world. So to show off this little technique, I've grabbed a little house from one of my building series and I've duplicated it over and added a little bit of wear, tear, and a little bit of story to it. So my way of adding a little bit of story, wear and tear, and time to the build is just a few different techniques. First up is the moisture. So as you can see here on this previous one, it's a purely spruce build on the roof. But I went in all these corners and where water would kind of sit and accumulate over time, I've added in dark oak just to simulate it all wet and kind of rotting away. I also did that with all this mossy stone. Sadly, Tuff doesn't have this in yet. That'd be a nice addition, but for now, this is the best I can do. And it adds a little bit of mold, like this world has seen a lot of rainfall and the repairs on this building are not up to date. I also went and destroyed the build a little bit. As you can see here, one of the posts has fallen over and I've grabbed little bits and placed them on the ground, as well as this little bit of a roof overhang. It used to be up here like this, but I brought it down, destroyed it, and then I threw a fence on the ground just to show the wear and tear over time. The whole thing is to simulate a story in your world. Same with all these barred up windows, and I've added little bits of nail using a little bit of signage just to show that this place is breaking down and no one is repairing it anymore. Now down here underneath the deck, I added a lot of detail in the form of things like vines, hanging moss, and all this pale moss carpet. It kind of adds a dingy area because this is like, it's far away from the sun and it's kind of gathering lots of moisture and mold, and the world, it's just kind of breaking down this build slowly. Another thing you might notice here, let's pop to the top, is some just very small detail where I kind of have a built over thing where maybe this broke over and now we're planking it up just to keep it all nice and safe. We also have more of these signs on the side here, and up on the back here, I tried a little bit on this bit as well. I had to use a little bit of barrier blocks just so it would actually sit on something, which isn't something you can do in survival, but for your creative builds, you can go a lot more creative. Now for the last couple things, I added a little bit of a water feature that wasn't in the original one. And I used that just so I could show like the moisture hitting on all this wood. You can see the different wood types can be shown for different moisture bits. I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but it can show a little bit of difference in your world where this is the dry bit and this is the wet bit. I also did a little bit of messing around because this used to be all polished tuff. Adding in just the regular tuff makes it look a lot more rough and not quite as neat. Same with this tree, I kind of just killed it, and these pale oak leaves really add a lot of time to your build. Next, building on that, some moisture. Now, Minecraft doesn't really show how water affects blocks right beside them, but you can. For example, I grabbed this little dock from a village in a world and I brought it over here to show you that this is how things are usually generated. And this is what you can build in your world. Now yes, this is a much more advanced build than the one I just showed you, but it also shows some cool building techniques I've already mentioned, one of those being the moisture. Now in this build, originally it would have been all made of this oak, but over time the water splashes up and gets it wet, and you can use the darker variations to show that water has gone over it. And you can show different levels, maybe the water doesn't kick up as much over here, so the water's only getting wet to this point, whereas this area is much more choppy, the water splashes up and gets all this stuff wet. You can also show it with the different types of shelving, or even the different trapdoors or builds like that. Just using the different colors can show a little bit of interaction with the world. Now you can also utilize this technique in areas where it's not like heavily watered like over in these kind of big oceans. You can do it just in a plain area like this where you have kind of indentations. Now, usually water doesn't generate like this, but I can make a little bit of an example to show you how you could change it to make it look a lot more natural. Now imagine an area like this under heavy rainfall, and all the water is pooling in certain areas and you have no good drainage for these lower areas. What you can do is you can simulate the water getting stuck and creating a lot of muddy patches. Now, if you compare to what that was to this shows that water kind of pools in these areas and gets stuck and doesn't have the ability to drain away. Like if this had like a nice path down into the river, maybe the water would be able to whoosh away. But for now, it's stuck in these areas and it's getting really moist and wet. So you can replace the dirt and grass with a bit of mud, maybe some muddy mangrove roots to show a bit of foliage from the trees getting stuck in here. And a way to kind of mess up the ground a little bit more, you add in a bit of coarse dirt on the edges where the grass kind of is struggling to grow against all this wet area. It also works if you have tiny little ponds, maybe expand out the mud to the sides where it kind of like overflows and then it retreats back when it gets into a more dry area. Now this next one is a little more complex, and it is shading. While you can try and do this manually, the easiest option is to watch this video here and follow along whilst using Axiom. Shading can make your world look so much better, but the only downside is it can take a long time to gather and place all of these blocks. But in the end, I think it's worth it. And finally, paths. While village paths are a good start, they're way too uniform and they kind of just stop on the village edge. Now here are a few different examples that I've come across that work really well with a bunch of different biomes. For example, you got the plains biome with this one. You can move it into the desert with this block palette, or into a darker area using this one. Maybe you need a palette for the nether, or even the end. And there are plenty more out there. Just play around with the different block types that will highlight being worn down by walking over them day after day. And that's that. Simple effects, but they can completely change how your world feels. So go and try them out, and even experiment with some of your own ideas, and try to make Minecraft look better.